This is Because Miami, and we're going to begin today's episode with a very brief Florida fuckery flashback, Roy. Last May, when Governor Ron DeSantis, he signed a bill into law passed by the legislature that would bar the state's colleges and universities from spending money on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and limit how race can be discussed in many courses. Joel Anderson tweeted, "I'm still looking for / hoping for prominent black Floridians, especially those who are top college football recruits and transfers, to use this as a pretext to boycott all schools affected by this bill. If they don't want us, don't go." Flash forward this week, Roy, the University of Florida, in response to this bill that passed last year, fired its entire DEI staff. It's at least 13 full-timers and a bunch of contract workers. Turns out that the fuck your feelings and First Amendment absolutist crowd are super offended by certain words, and those words are diversity, equity, and inclusion, critical race and theory, things like this. There's always a boogeyman. But lo and behold, Joel was ahead of his time here because the legendary University of Florida graduate, NFL Hall of Famer, Escambia high school legend, Emmitt Smith.
We can actually talk good about Gators players now, and that's great.
Well, let's not get carried away, Roy. I'm gonna read you an excerpt here from what he tweeted this week in response to UF's action. I'm utterly disgusted by UF's decision and the precedent that it sets. Without the DEI department, the job falls to the office of the provost, who already has their hands full to raise money for the university and continue to advance the academic studies and athletic programs. We cannot continue to believe and trust that a team of leaders, all made up of the same background, will make the right decision when it comes to equality and diversity. History has already proven that is not the case. We need diverse thinking and backgrounds to enhance our university, and the DEI department is necessary to accomplish those goals. Instead of showing courage and leadership, we continue to fail based on systemic issues, and with this decision, UF has conformed to the political pressures of today's time. To the many minority athletes at UF, please be aware and vocal about this decision by the university, who is now closing the doors on other minorities without any oversight. And to those who think it's not your problem and stay on the sidelines and say nothing, you are complicit in supporting systemic issues. Joel Anderson is a staff writer for Slate, the host of Slate's Slow Burn podcasts on Biggie and Tupac at the LA riots and Clarence Thomas. You can check him out frequently on Slate's Hang Up and Listen sports podcast. And before all that, he covered college sports for ESPN. He is overqualified to be here today. Joel, first off, what is your reaction to Emmitt Smith's statement? And how are you feeling about it's not really your call for a boycott, but almost your fantasy, for a boycott, and how could that actually practically take place?
Well, man, it's a long overdue moment, but I'm really excited that somebody, a previously and mostly apolitical Emmitt Smith, speaking out in this moment. And I mean, we're talking about Emmitt Smith, one of the best players to ever play at the University of Florida, one of the best to ever come out of the state. And for him to speak out in this moment really speaks out to his anger, and the anger that is bubbling under the surface among people that will be affected by DeSantis's, legislation priorities here, and also the desperation of the moment. Because if you think about it, DeSantis and his cronies have mostly completed in public, in full view of everybody. He's called his shots. There's no surprise here. He said what he was going to do, and now he's almost accomplished a full takeover of the education system in Florida, and that's going to have implications for years, if not decades. And so I did not want to be right about where this was going to go, but I am, I guess, cautiously optimistic that Emmitt Smith speaking out means that there might be more people on the way.
Before we get into kind of the practicalities of what you've, again, I don't want to say you've called for it. You've not called. You've sort of you're attempting to manifest.
I believe we should have one. Yes,
okay.
I'm calling for it. Yes, okay. If it's possible, people should do it. Yes.
Okay, is it possible? I mean, 18-year-old kids making a decision that they've worked their whole lives for. Is this on them to sort of to have to rise to this moment? These kids.
Right. Well, it depends on what we mean by possible, right? Like, it's probably not possible to attack or target every institution in every state that is pursuing these sort of initiatives. Like similar initiatives are being considered in Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia. I'm under no illusions that all of these schools in the elite Black athletic talent that they want are going to be able to say no to all those schools. I know that, but one school can be made an example out of, and that's very possible. And it doesn't really actually take that many players to probably cause some problems for them. You know, and our friend Bomani Jones talked about this yesterday, and I talk about it with him offline a lot of the time. Florida could easily become Ole Miss. Now, a lot of people don't remember, like in the 80s and 90s, this is after, you know, desegregation. We're a few decades removed, but it was still very difficult for them to get in elite athletic Black talent, despite being one of the blackest states in the country. It is the blackest state in the country. And because of that is the legacy of racism and hostility they had toward Black people. And so, you know, right now, Florida seems to have caught the attention of a lot of people. And they, you know, fortunately for people that are on the side of justice, and unfortunately for people that would like to see the Gators do something more than what they've done in the last few years, they've caught the attention of people that maybe have the opportunity to move some folks. And I mean, look, already right now, I don't live in Florida anymore, but I can only imagine.
You.
You know, I'm not, you know, California is a good safe haven for right now. I will say that. But I would say that, you know, are Florida Gator fans happy with their recruiting right now? Do they think it's really, are they really excited about it? And they have a lot of hope for it? Well, this is the sort of thing that if Florida doesn't address this sort of stuff, and there's some momentum on the side of people like me who would like to see a boycott, they could be dealing with this for a very long time. They could easily become the kind of school that people say, hey, man, are you sure that you want to send your son down there? Do you think they'll be comfortable? Do you think they'll be taken care of? Do you think that people will welcome them with open arms when their playing days are over? So, yeah, man, I'm again, cautiously optimistic. Optimistic is the word, I think.
And to let Bomani tell it, Mississippi, and I will never, ever call them Ole Miss. Mississippi decided that they'd rather be white on their football team and be sorry than actually recruit Black players. And you're saying that all the state institutions, except for the HBCUs, are going to go down the same route?
Well, I don't think. First of all, I would say this about Ole Miss. They had the misfortune of loudly and proudly flying the Confederate flag at games, and that made the hostility that much more apparent. But if you were in states within that southern footprint, Texas, LSU, Georgia, all of those schools for a number of years had a lot of difficulty recruiting Black athletes. You know, people that had families that lived in those states could go back generations, and they were mostly tied to HBCUs. They had no particular love for the flagship schools in these states. And so it took them a long time. If you may have noticed, SEC schools really did not have this. They did not become this behemoth in football until very recently. And because for a very long time, Black people were uncomfortable going to schools there. They had no particular fondness for it. But do I think that, you know, Florida State or FIU or FAU, like that they have to go down this road? No. Like it would be really easy for Mike Norvell, easy in quotation marks. But somebody like Mike Norvell could say, I don't like this. This is going to have a negative influence on recruiting. And do you know why I know that he can do that? Steve Spurrier did it for years at South Carolina. In 2015, Mike Leach, who is, I talked to Mike Leach a number of times before he passed. That dude is no flaming liberal, but he ended up going to the State House in Mississippi, asking them to take down the Confederate flag off part of the State House because it was affecting recruiting. And people were like, hey, man, they're looking at us. They can see our racism in public. Maybe we should it's hard to get good Black players who want to come down here. Maybe we should do something about that. So, no, FSU, all those other schools in this footprint, they don't have to go down the road that U of F seems to be going down. But it would help if they said something. They're going to have to stand apart from the schools that are eagerly pursuing these sort of initiatives.
I'm a white guy in Miami. I don't, to tell you the truth, know what it is the DEI department at the University of Florida in Gainesville did. I don't know if there is a good faith argument to be made that it was well managed or that that money could not have been better allocated elsewhere. But what I do know is here in the state of Florida, there has now emerged a pattern or practice from the legislature, which has shown that we are not dealing with good faith actors. Just the latest in a debate this week, for the passage of yet another anti-CRT bill, because we just don't have enough of those, and the takeover of public education apparently is not complete. We had a Florida Republican legislator. Actually, he represents, believe it or not, where Emmitt Smith's high school, Escambia High, is located, right which, by the way, is more. It's more in Alabama than it is in Florida. It is literally the
Floribama, right? This is Floribama.
Oh,
right?
It is right. Yeah. It is the far left tip of the state of Florida, of the Panhandle, and the headline, of course, we're making national headlines as always. Rolling Stone: Florida Republicans keep trying to argue that slavery wasn't so bad. To be fair, that's not exactly what this Representative Alex Andrade said, but I'll let you guys listen to what he said and react to the point he was evidently trying to make.
There is only one way to teach about slavery in Florida, and that is that it was evil. But if we can't have an honest discussion and say that some slaves were paid for their work and were able to actually get a portion of payment that slave owners received for their labor, then we're afraid of teaching accurate history. If you were not aware that some slaves received payment, not payment that was good, not payment that was valid, not payment that was moral, but if we can't even have that discussion in this room, what hope do we have to teach and actually agree on facts?
I would agree with the latter part of his point.
What hope do we have?
What hope do we have?
What hope do we have?
I certainly agree with that part. Remember, this is 2024, and last year in 2023, there was a scandal about the Florida educational standards, including the quote-unquote fact that slaves developed skills. You remember that from last year. So this seems to be a continuing part of this. And Joel, thoughts?
Well, I mean, so here's the thing. So if I cared about a black child ages, 17 to 23, and they're trying to just figure out where they want to go to school, there's a lot of options out there. And I would say to that child, it's like, do you think you will be comfortable there? Do you think they will welcome you with open arms there? Do you think that you will have the range of academic experiences that you might have somewhere else? When you graduate, do you think it's a place that you'll want to settle? Because, one of the things that people, talk about when you go to college, more than likely, you're going to end up somewhere within a fairly close vicinity of your alma mater. Is that some sort of place that you would want to stay, set up shop, raise your own family someday? And you hear that sort of thing. You see what DeSantis has done to these schools, what he continues to push us to do. People like that are in the state, and I know that he's by no means representative of the entire, House of Representatives there in Florida, but he's partially, right? Yeah, right. Like he's part of a growing wave of Republicans there, right?
He's in the supermajority, Joel.
Yeah, right.
They say crazy shit and it becomes law.
Yeah, I mean, man, it's just crazy because I just remember things were so bad in Florida when I left that they were running Charlie Crist as a Democrat, and I was just like, man, it's like, have we given up here, right?
This is the state of second chances. The state of second chances, Joel.
Yeah, I did not know. It has really gotten out of place. But I'm from Texas, so I should know better than that.
Yeah.
But yes, look, man. I don't think that I would feel comfortable if I had a child, and I do have a son. He's almost 2 years old, and he's not ready for a college decision yet. But I would tell him, I was like, I don't think that that's where you're going to want to be, and it would be real easy to make that case and talk to other black kids throughout the state, throughout the Southeast, that also happen to be 6'4", 250 pounds, that can run 4.6. And if you have an option to go somewhere else, you go to USC. You could go to University of Georgia. I mean, they haven't passed that legislation there yet. They go to Ohio State. There's a lot of other places you can go that might welcome you. And, that kind of talk all out in the open, that certainly will, there'll be some honest discussions being had in some homes as well about whether or not you want to be privy to that discussion if you go to school in Florida.
Roy, in response to this scandal, Representative Alex Andrade tweeted, apparently Florida Dems want to ban the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass from Florida school libraries. They're fighting tooth and nail to keep this passage from his book out of Florida schools. By the way, for the record, fact check, nobody is trying to ban this book. Certainly not Democrats are trying to ban this book. But here's the quote. There I was immediately set to caulking. and very soon learned the art of using my mallet and irons. In the course of 1 year from the time I left Mr. Gardner's, I was able to command the highest wages given to the most experienced caulkers. I was now of some importance to my master. I was bringing him from $6 to $7 per week. I sometimes brought him $9 per week. My wages were $1.50 a day. So this is, I guess this is in his defense. He's saying, see, this is from the words of Frederick Douglass. Roy, you look like you. I'm not sure if you look like you have something to say or you have nothing to say. I'm not really sure. All right, Roy just threw off his headphones and exited the studio. So I guess I'm flying solo for the rest of the show.
I encourage many other black people in Florida to pursue the path out that door. You know, there's other places to live if you can do it. That is not, no, but look, man, seriously, Billy, like, I think people should also stand and fight. And what Emmitt Smith is doing is great. And when Roy comes back into the studio and puts on his helmet and his mouthpiece and his shoulder pads, you know what I'm saying? I'm sure he'll be ready to run the Oklahoma drill too, you know?
I think Roy just jumped on his Zamboni and is just cruising right down Biscayne Boulevard right now. I don't think we're ever ever hear from him. He's gonna cruise for the freedom of Georgia at this point.
Well, you know what? You know, look, oftentimes in conflict, fight or flight, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes people choose to, you know, flee. So I'm not saying it's wrong, but some people need to stay and fight.
Well, you only got, what, 3,000 miles away? How far are you?
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is what Zoom is for, right? You know what I'm saying? I have a good phone line. You know, I pay I'm up to date on my phone bill. So, you know, I can help.
Follow him at by Joel Anderson. Joel Anderson, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. My honor. Thanks so much.
Cell phone video capturing the dramatic aftermath of an arrest gone wrong in Miami Beach.
I heard the gunshot. I was like 10 feet away. I was right there.
Jeremy Mueller visiting South Florida for the weekend, seeing the whole thing go down Saturday afternoon, just after 12:30. Police
SUV kind of following a guy walking down the street. And the man, older gentleman, had a big backpack. He was kind of yelling at the cop.
Miami Beach police say they got a call the man possibly had a gun. As the officer followed in the SUV, witnesses say things then got very intense.
She jumped out of the car, pulled her gun, and ran at him. It looked like the cop shot at the person, and it hit the other cop.
Fellow officers running to help.
His leg was bleeding out like a lot. They took him off in an ambulance.
And cuffed the guy they were after. The officer rushed to Jackson's Ryder Trauma as an investigation was underway along the Venetian Causeway, shutting down all lanes of traffic for several hours.
As you heard from that WSVN report, spring break hasn't even started yet, and the fuckery is already underway. I can't even just imagine the scene. This police officer is taking this guy into custody, unarmed man who is having a mental health crisis, taking him into custody loudly but safely. And this cop drives up, and I imagine her car like hitting trash cans like Frank Drebin in Naked Gun. I imagine her, this is like Reno 911, dude. I imagine her like running out of the car like she forgets to put it in park, you know, it keeps kind of rolling, and then she like pulls her gun and starts running and trips on flat ground and then shoots the other cop. I mean, it's so, and this other cop, to his credit, manages to still take this guy into custody safely and non-violently while yelling for a tourniquet because his fucking leg is bleeding because she shot him. His fellow officers shot him in the leg. Like, this is, you know, first of all, this has been a hell of a week in Miami for cop-on-cop violence. Like, just a couple days ago, a Miami-Dade cop was arrested for drunk driving while on duty after he crashed his unmarked car into an occupied police cruiser and then runs out yelling, holding his gun at the other cop. And they take him into custody. He won't do a sobriety test, but he says, I drank too much. They put him in the back of a police car, and he pisses himself.
Sounds like a confession to me.
Spring break is already underway, and this is starting to remind me, Roy, of like Memorial Day weekend 2011, where the only shots fired that weekend were by police officers. And they turned Collins Avenue into a shooting gallery with 116 shots where they killed one guy and they injured 4 bystanders, just people standing around the busiest street in Miami Beach. And like Sheldon Fox at WSVN tweeted, notable recent Miami Beach incidents. This is they're making spring break seem like it's the villain, but we have a cop accidentally shoots another cop, closing down the Venetian Causeway. By the way, we're some of the richest people who moved to Miami during the pandemic. They bought multi-million-dollar houses, and since they got here, it's been shut down for construction, for shit in the water. On the east side of the Venetian is where they always have the no contact order with the water on the east side of the Venetian, and now a cop shooting another cop accidentally. You have bullets flying into the Pelican Hotel on Ocean Drive, a 14-year-old boy shot in Mid-Beach, an off-duty cop arresting a drunk gunman on Washington, a man stabbing another on Pine Tree Drive, and marijuana is the problem, obviously, Roy. But have you seen the clip of Miami Beach breaking up this viral video? Miami Beach produced this video. Watch this.
We need to talk.
This isn't working anymore.
We just want different things.
You just want to get drunk in public and ignore laws.
We're breaking up with you.
We're done.
And just so you know, we're serious.
This March, you can expect things like curfews, bag checks, and restricted beach access.
DUI checkpoints, $100 parking, and strong police enforcement for drug possession and violence.
Whatever it takes, because it's time to move on.
Maybe we can talk when you're done with your spring break phase, but until then.
Roy, Miami Beach is breaking up with spring break.
You want me to get back in my Zamboni and drive away again?
I don't, Roy. I really don't. I really don't want to be here all by myself. I really don't. The lone hater out here. But it gets better, Roy.
It gets better?
It gets better. Your boy, Ron DeSantis,
Nazis are his base.
Has come to town with reinforcements.
If you're committing crimes, causing havoc, you are going to pay the price, and we will hold you accountable because that's what we do here.
Last year, gunfire killed 2 people in spring break crowds on Ocean Drive. This year's response, a zero-tolerance crackdown. Tuesday, Governor Ron DeSantis showed up promising reinforcement for city police. That includes Coast Guard, Fish and Wildlife officers, Florida Highway Patrol drones, and mobile command trucks. The city will share 24 of the state's quick response officers. DeSantis is also sending at least 60 troopers for Dade, Broward, and Volusia counties to share. What all did you notice?
Lots of police presence. Like even when we were coming in, there was notified signs of DUI checkpoints, and walking out to the beach, there are notified areas of checkpoints and lots of cars and marked vehicles and lights and things that you would see, but nothing uncomfortable.
This group of moms from Cincinnati felt good about the show of force. Merrick did too when police explained their presence.
Probably makes me more likely to come back, to be honest, because we're from a smaller community, and so to come to a big community like Miami, to know that there's a big police presence, everybody's live to whatever issues might be there, would make us more likely to come back.
Come on back, Karen.
Roy, you beat me to the punch. Roy, glad you hopped off your Zamboni to rejoin me here.
So the state is effectively sending down Roscoe P. Coltrane to. There's a new sheriff in town, everybody.
Roy, you heard in that CBS News Miami report that those white women from Ohio feel super safe. Used to spend a lot of time on Ocean Drive during all the time. But do you feel safer on spring break with a military presence, state troopers and police officers and tanks and machine guns?
I feel safer in Broward.
Head for the hills.
Mm-hmm.
Head for the hills. Joel, you didn't quite go as Joel Anderson was like, how far away can I get and still be in the United States? It's like 3,000 miles. Let's
Puerto Rico.
Let's do that. Is that in? I'm sorry. Is that in the United States?
It's called a territory.
Right? Is that right?
Of course, your elected officials probably don't know that.
I did want to do, speaking of police accountability, I did want to do a quick update to last week's story. Remember we talked to Rodney Jacobs about the state attempting to pass a bill that would effectively ban civilian oversight of police in Florida? It passed. And I'm sure Ron DeSantis will sign it, and there will be no civilian oversight of law enforcement in the state of Florida anymore. And remember we talked some weeks ago about the city of Miami starting a bunch of podcasts to kind of like counter the haters here on Because Miami?
How can I help?
Our rivals.
You remember? Yes. So they haven't done a lot of episodes of those. In fact, there's like one or two that seem to have kind of been soft canceled by the city of Miami, including Art General Noriega, the city manager, whose Shit Talk and Lies podcast. I believe that's what it's called, the Shit Talk and Lies podcast. But Miami Mayor Francis Suarez, his podcast, which is called
How Can I Help
Podcast, he has done some additional episodes, including this one.
The reason why I'm doing this is because I want the public to know what we're doing. I want the public to know people like you who are working every day, grinding to make our city better and to provide care for those who are the most vulnerable in our community, who maybe are forgotten, but also could be family members of ours.
Bullshit.
I love that music. I mean, it's no. But it's still pretty catchy, and so he posted that clip to Instagram, interviewing the head of Camilla's House, which is a homeless shelter here in downtown Miami. And I'm going to do the top 5, Roy, Instagram comments to that post on that video you just saw and heard there. Number 5 from Sofas of Little Havana. We know why you're doing this podcast. Your reputation laundering. Solid. Number 4. This is from screen name Fact Check D's Nuts MF.
Yes.
I repeat, that is Fact Check the.
That's me.
I repeat, that is Fact Check D's Nuts MF. We have found
my burner.
We have found your burner account, Roy. By the way, this is a good comment, but it only made the list so I could say for the third time, Fact Check D's Nuts MF. Let me guess. Invest in crypto? I'd invest in getting you removed from office.
Fact check these nuts, mofo.
Not that funny, but I'm delighted. Number 3 is from Easy Breezy. I'm going to have to take a deep breath for this one.
Uh-oh.
Let's be honest that the reason you do this is because you love to hear yourself talk. If you cared and did your job, you'd be in every city commission meeting weeding out all the corruption. But instead, you're podcasting like you're a celebrity. We would be proud if you did real work instead of getting rich and famous off of your constituents. Actually do work to improve people's life by addressing the housing insecurity, rent affordability, public transportation, enhancing our parks and keeping our city clean, demanding better wages and protection for workers, etc. For the first half, I felt attacked. I'm not going to be lied by that comment, and then it got a little more on point there. Number 2 is from Maritze 125. You lost me when you failed to stand up for Art Acevedo. Remember, you were smack dab in the middle of the city's corruption, and you did nothing. Nada. Shame on you. I feel like all of these are your burner accounts, Roy.
Yep. I'm a good writer.
And number 1, Instagram comment on Francis Suarez's latest How Can I Help podcast post is from Posh Life Miami. Bro, we're tired of your big picture economic development plans, which is just code for lining my pockets. Y'all get richer the further you destabilize our local economy, and y'all still salivating as you pick on the bones of Miami residents. Shit.
Bro.
Shit, bro. That was brutal. Pick on the bones. And we have one outside looking in from B-Rad Rock. It's followed by some emojis, which I'll have to describe, Roy. The comment is sapinguito, which kind of means like little yutz or little idiot. It is followed by a series of pig emojis, a series of clown emojis, and a series of poop emojis. I couldn't have said it better myself, Roy.
Yeah.
You know why?
Because Miami.
Mr. Mayor, you're brilliant. You were super smart.
Cocaine's.
Do me a favor. Turn around. Put your hands behind your back.
18-year-old Joshua Epstein cuffed on Friday in Surfside, accused of pushing the vice mayor, Jeff Rose, after a commission meeting.
He was charged with felony assault on an elected official. They arrested my son to teach him a lesson, to silence residents from speaking out. This is third world thuggery. To use the police force to silence a political opponent is something we see happen in Russia.
Mayor of Surfside's an underhanded, slimy little schlub. That place is 8 blocks and somehow more corrupt than Havana. No shame or pride. I wanna be dictator with a man bun.
Don't ask me to get the police involved. Have a seat.
Thinks he's so smart, but there's not much underneath that yarmulke. My sugar nah, Shlomo singer. Screw that guy. He's making secret trips with billionaires out in Dubai. Don't vote in Zinger. In Surfside, psychotic racist putts. Yeah, that's Dan Zinger. Wiener, bad guy.
Does anybody know to speak Spanish to tell her there? Because I've said it like 4 times.
Vice Mayor Jeff Rose, a fake tough guy who likes to bully kids.
Keep pushing me. Back up. You already pushed me.
They're shameless assholes, moronic fascists jailing their critics. The chief of police has been accused of sexual harassment. Marciante, oh people please, we gotta vote him out on March 19th. Come on and sing, Shlomo and Zinger. Screw that guy, a ringer for developers. There's dollar signs in his eyes. Fuck a little schmuck, yeah, that's Dan Zinger. Wiener, ow!
I just want to let everybody know I have a few black friends.
There are 34 municipalities in Miami-Dade County, and they each have like their own mayors, their own commissions and councils, many of them their own police departments. And really what they've become is their own fiefdoms and their own places where these racketeering organizations masquerading as local governments kind of take over. They're like dictatorships in some cases, like in Miami for dynastic political crime families. And in the case of Surfside, which was in most recent years famous for the tragedy of the Champlain Towers collapsing while people slept at night, killing 99 residents. And now it is known for somehow managing to be more corrupt than the city of Miami. This whole town, Roy, is 8 blocks long, and it is turned into this like third world cesspool where you have mayors and vice mayors who are basically real estate hustlers at this point, because what the Champlain tragedy has ushered in is this era of opportunity and really exploitation for real estate predators who want to come in, build higher, build newer, force residents out for so-called life safety issues and take over. And so you have this influx of big money from developers. And you have a vice mayor who is in fact himself a real estate hustler who owns like a significant percentage of the town and operates with impunity. He actually changes the laws to benefit himself and his real estate hustle. Joining us now is former Surfside Commissioner Eliana Salazar, who is also the mother of this 18-year-old activist, Josh Epstein, who was just arrested for, my understanding, is nothing. Like, this is, when I say third world, like thuggery, like, I mean, they are training their Tonton Makut onto local activists who they disagree with. Eliana, you've been very vocal before this. Obviously, you've been very vocal since your son's arrest last Friday. What the hell happened in this incident, and what the hell is happening in Surfside?
This is the foreseeable consequence of no checks and balances in town hall. This began a year ago when the mayor fired the town manager, the police chief, and the assistant town manager financial officer in 24 hours. All of them were gone. And he appointed the former head of the garbage department as the manager.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, what? The former head of the garbage department, did you say?
The former public works director, who had only been the public works director for a year because the last guy got forced out because of a sexting scandal. He had only been in that position a year, and he appointed him to be town manager with no prior experience. It was like, that's where we jumped the shark. That is where Surfside jumped the shark.
In the immortal words of Miami Mayor Ponzi Postalita,
if you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out.
So you had this hostile takeover. You had this Fidel Castro-esque revolution in this little seaside town just north of Miami Beach. They replaced what I presume were competent or somewhat competent professionals with the garbage man. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what has happened since then? How do we get to this situation where your son is getting arrested for being a concerned citizen in City Hall?
So the mayor, you have to understand, in our town, we have a strong manager form of government. The mayor is supposed to only be 20%. But this mayor moved into town hall. He gave himself a big office so he can micromanage the staff without creating a public record. So what began as moving the line on his sort of abuse of power has resulted in them, that everyone else is a puppet. So the police force is their enforcers. You go to a commission meeting and you start, critiquing their administration, and you get the threat of the cops are coming to get you. And we have so many incidents on record video where they literally use the police chief, and we've had several police chiefs, because I think some of them have left because they don't feel comfortable, being that role, where they literally are using them to threaten residents. And so my son being arrested is shocking. It's a new low. It's a new low, because in the past, they just threatened to arrest you. They said, you don't sit down, we're going to come for you. The vice mayor himself has sat up there at commission meetings and said, hey, residents, you start reporting to outside agencies. You go to the state, you go to the agencies. We know who you are, and you're going to get called out. So he pretty much was threatening residents that if you try to seek outside help from the state agencies that are out there to try to protect us, he's going to call you out. He's going to hold you accountable. And this thuggery, these threats, when they're being made by the people that have control over everything in town, are real. But I never imagined that they would come and arrest someone. And I thought they would come maybe for me, but this is worse, right? Because how do you really deliver a message to a mother? By taking their son off the streets with no notice in the nights, with no notice, and taking them down to GGK, right? An 18-year-old honors student.
So let me be clear about this. This incident, this arrest last Friday stemmed from an incident last Wednesday at town hall, where there was a candidate forum, because you have an upcoming election. The mayor, Shlomo Danziger, this vice mayor, Joe, what's his name? Rose? Jeff Rose, not Joe Rose.
Jeff
Big dog.
Jeffy Smollett. Yeah.
Yes. He was there by half a dozen witness accounts. This Jeff Rose, vice mayor, was the aggressor, crossed the room to confront another resident. Your son was there, kind of got his cell phone out to film. This confrontation ensued, and then the vice mayor makes a complaint, kind of bogus complaint, signs a no prosecution order. I don't actually want to prosecute. Your son posts this unflattering video of this guy who behaves like an animal. I mean, his conduct is absolutely unbecoming of an elected official in a town hall at a public event. And then come Friday afternoon, by the way, Roy, they did this late, so he would have to stay in jail basically for almost 36 hours. And they pick him up. Well, he's registered to swim. He signed up to swim at the pool, and they know he's going to leave the house and walk to the pool, and they arrest him on the street. Mind you, Eliana, I'm guessing they could have just called you and said, bring him to the police department. You would have walked right over.
Listen, the reason I'm so furious is because I was proactive. First of all, my son is the one who went to the police on Wednesday to say, I want an order of protection from Jeff. He's threatening me and I don't feel safe. He said on the video, see what happens. Push me again and see what happens. And of course, the push is the metaphorical, pushing his buttons.
Right.
And he mentions me. He says, just like your mother, you're pushing me, right? And so my son went to the police because he was fearful. And of course, the police turned that around into Jeff Rose is going to press charges, but he's being nice and doesn't want to, and tells us we're not going to do anything. So on Friday, I was texting the town manager. I called the detective. I said, there's a bunch of witnesses in the room. Look at the video. There's like a dozen people in the room. Here are their names and numbers. Please call them. And that was given to the detective before my son was arrested. That was communicated in the afternoon. We had a conversation. I said, we're happy to come in and talk to you on Monday. You know, this was a closed This was nothing. When we were told on Wednesday when we left that this was an incident report and it was nothing, the town manager told me, this is open, we don't know what we're doing here. And the next thing you know, I get this frantic phone call. Your son's been arrested, from another commissioner who happened to call my son's iPhone, while he's being cuffed. I mean, that was fate, because I think the police intended to have him disappear.
For the weekend, at least.
They deliberately did this after hours on a Friday night. This was done deliberately to teach him a lesson, to teach me a lesson, to show us, don't open your mouth because we have all the power and you are going to pay. And of course, that was what they were trying to do.
And of course, they tipped off the media to try to get a perp walk of this 18-year-old kid with a clean record. Roy.
So what is the legal recourse that you have in this situation?
Oh, well, the first thing we're trying to do is have the state attorney look at this and go, my God, this is baloney. We're hoping that the volume of evidence, we have 6 sworn witness statements saying that this never happened, that my son did not touch anyone, and that Jeff Rose was the aggressor. Jeff Rose came rushing across the room at another resident named Oliver, who in Jeff's mind had disrespected his mother by insulting her in the hallway earlier that night. Again, we have no proof of any of this. But even if Oliver looked at his mother a different way, that doesn't mean Jeff Rose can come across the room with his arms waving, whether it was to swing at him, whether it was to threaten him with that finger pointing. That was what Jeff Rose did. And my son just took his phone out, to video.
Let me be clear. This charge is a felony battery of an elected official, which in some cases could result in you stay in custody. And I want to show this clip because it's a really good question Roy asked in terms of what the consequences are and what hopefully the remedies will be for you later on. Because at the moment, this kid's in jeopardy. I mean, he's facing this felony charge. But I want to play this clip from Josh Epstein's arraignment with Judge Mindy Glazer last Saturday.
I'm ordering that you stay away from the alleged victim, Jeffrey Rose. I'll say you have to stay at least 25 feet away from the victim. I think with the 25 feet stay away order, he's still allowed to attend any city commission meetings, maybe while this case is pending. He should make a decision not to go to any of those meetings. If you pick up another law violation and you're rearrested, you're going to stay locked up in jail until your trial. You're community organizing from home maybe, or near your house where your parents are supervising, okay?
This judge, I don't know what choice she had. She's got to do a stay-away order, but what she's basically saying is you have no First Amendment rights right now because you run the risk of, in this tiny town, running into this guy and inadvertently violating this order, maybe being at a public meeting, doing your activism, exercising your First Amendment rights as a citizen, and getting rearrested for violating that order, and you're going to be in jail. Eliana, I want to know, 2 things. First, I mean, this guy's got houses all over town, right? So your son doesn't know where the safe zones are. I mean, is he basically under house arrest right now? And second, what kind of effect, a chilling effect, is this having town-wide in terms of the political enemies or opponents of these nefarious wannabe dictators?
Yeah, this vice mayor is the biggest builder in town. He's a contractor. He has over 19 projects going on right now. So every block in town has one of his projects. Every block in town has a big Rose sign on it. So my son is effectively, by this order, a prisoner because he doesn't want to run into Jeff Rose. Town hall, maybe Jeff Rose is there all the time getting his building permits. This is a man who swore before he got elected that he would recuse himself on zoning issues and has done nothing but reinterpret our zoning code, clarify the zoning code, grease the wheels to allow him to be able to build, flip, profit. And my son is now essentially under house arrest. I mean, he is upset about this because he wants to continue to walk around the neighborhood. When we went to the pool yesterday, we had to have 2 other adults with him. We are very concerned because of this continued abuse of power that they would try to violate him. They are looking for an excuse. And every resident here is terrified, and we're terrified of our own town hall. And that's the problem. And that's what they intended. That was their message. And that was what they're trying to do. We need the state attorney's office to come in to do a deep dive into town hall and to hold these people accountable. There are witnesses that have come forward. There are witnesses that want to talk to the state attorney. And we need to go through the state attorney because town hall is not safe. No resident is safe under this administration.
Listen, Roy, this could result in a First Amendment, federal lawsuit. This could result in filing of false charges, filing false police report against this vice mayor.
Well, get that done. Let's go.
My last question, Eliana, is as a mother, clearly this is political retaliation more aimed at you than your son. And this political, infighting in the town seems to predate, obviously, this incident. And how does it feel for you as a mother to know that they're aiming at your innocent teenage son with no criminal record, who wants to go to law school and has a future ahead of him? How does this feel for you?
Yeah, like I said, they were trying to hurt me. And it makes me angry. Of course, I'm devastated. My son spent 27 hours in one of the worst jails in Miami with actual criminals, with murderers, with rapists, with real criminals. And my son's crime was revealing Jeff Rose's horrible temper on a video. That was his crime. And that is why this is unacceptable, because he didn't do anything wrong here. But what they did was vindictive. What they did, the crime, the consequence did not fit what he did. He did nothing. But even assuming in their fantasies that something happened here, to pick a kid up, an 18-year-old honor student kid up, and to terrify him like that on the street, to handcuff him behind his back, to yell at him with a car, he's having trauma. We're never going to get that time back. He is never going to be the same again. That was 27 hours of hell that I wouldn't wish on any child, and I wouldn't wish any mother to experience that terror. And that judge, I was terrified. We're lucky that judge let him out, because had that been before another judge, my son would still be rotting in jail. And I guarantee you that's what Town Hall hoped. Town Hall hoped that they would tie him up and me up and terrify everyone until after this election, so they could get another 2 years of abuse, so they could have 2 more years of this self-dealing, of this reign of terror.
Former Surfside Commissioner Eliana Salazar, thank you for being here. Good luck to Joshua.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Everyone needs to really, help out here and step up. We really need people to sign our petition. We need the state attorney to step in. We need the state to step in and clean up Town Hall.
Where can we find the petition?
It's going to be on change.org, I think it's called. It's Joshua-Justice-for-Joshua. So there's 2 hyphens, Justice-for-Joshua. And that's going to be the petition on change.org, I believe is the site. Again, this just happened on Friday. We are just a grassroots group of residents that are trying to protect our little town from this kind of corruption. And we're fighting a beast. It's a David and Goliath. And we're hopeful, but we're also, we're terrified. We need people to vote. We need people to vote on March 19th and to give a strong message that this will not be tolerated.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.